stories. The last one I did, I will put it also in the description box. And an end card at the end of this video was a lady from Tallahassee that was raped, and all 4 of her assailants were given prison time. That's the last story I did, which was months and months ago, but I'm here back with another one, and this one is about the Florida School for Boys. If you want to keep watching, please continue to watch. But before we get into this though, do not forget to hit the subscribe button to become part of the gang and, you know, join the gang, because why not? Also, hit the notification bell to get notified every time that I upload or go live, because I do sometimes, you know, on the reg. Who knows? I don't know. Give this video a thumbs up, comment down below what you will, and let me know what else you guys would like to see from me on my channel. My social medias are always in the description box. And without further ado, let's get into this video. I'm reading off of Wikipedia if you guys want to know. I didn't do anything beforehand. Usually I do a lot of beforehand research before I tell these stories, and I usually tell it just from me speaking, so my own person. I just say it in my own words basically, but I just wanted to get this story out to you guys because I haven't done one of these in so long, so that's what I'm doing. I apologize if you guys don't like it this way. Next story I do will be done through me personally. Anyways, continue. The Florida School for Boys, also known as Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys, AGDS, was a reform school operated by the state of Florida in the panhandle town of Marianna from January 1st, 1900 to June 30th, 2011. So this school was open for over 100 years. It was a reform school. And every time I hear of a reform school, I kind of think of like prison for little boys. Because it's not good. Reform school means you're bad and your parents send you away to the school to get fixed or help. But most of the time these schools really don't do anything. They do not reform you. They actually make the situation, if not worse. So for a time, it was the largest juvenile reform institution in the United States. A second campus was opened in the town of Okeechobee in 1995. And throughout its 111-year history, the school gained a reputation for abuse, beatings, rapes, torture, and even murder of students by staff. And despite periodic investigations, changes of leadership, and promises to improve, the allegations of cruelty and abuse continued. After the school failed an inspection in 2009, the governor ordered a full investigation. Many of the historic and recent allegations of abuse and violence were confirmed by separate investigations by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in 2010 and by the Civil Rights Division of the United States Department of Justice in 2011. State authorities closed the school permanently in June 2011, and at the time of its closure, it was part of the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. Like I said, prison. Given the questions about the number of deaths at the school and a high number of unmarked graves, the state authorized a forensic anthropology survey by the University of South Florida in 2012, and they identified 55 burials on the grounds, most outside the cemetery, and documented nearly 100 deaths at the school. The state said it did not have the authority to allow the exhuming of graves, which would permit determination of cause of death and identification of remains. In addition, it wanted to sell land on the property. A family member of a student who died at the school in 1934 and wanted to re-enter his remains filed suit and gained an injunction against the state's moving ahead with the sale before remains could be exhumed and identified. The state responded to the court injunction and authorized more work by multiple disciplinary teams from the University of Southern Florida, including bodies being exhumed. In January 2016, the USF team issued its final report, and having made 7 DNA matches and 14 presumptive identifications of remains, they will continue to work on the identification. From its opening until the 1980s, the Marianna site was an open campus of about 1,400 acres without any perimeter fencing. The site was originally divided into 2 sub-campuses, South Side, or number 1, for white students, and North Side, number 2, for colored students. The sections were segregated until 1966. A cemetery was located in the north side known as Boot Hill Cemetery. Most of the graves were unmarked, and records of many of the undocumented 100 students who died at the facility were lacking. A 2016 report from an extensive forensic investigation begun by the University of South Florida faculty began in 2011 said that the buried remains of 55 deceased students were found, including numerous remains found outside of the cemetery boundaries in the woods or bush areas. The state had been trying to identify them, some through the use of DNA, but many were still unidentified by the time the report was issued. In 1990 to 1991, the Northside campus was permanently closed. That's a little bit of history on the school. The school has been around for a very long time. It's in my own state. Marianna, Florida is where it's located. This was a boys' school, and they allowed ages from 8 all the way to 21. Now, I'm trying to figure out, this is a boys' school. Why would I want a 20? Okay, whatever. I'm gonna lie. It was a pretty large campus. I will be inserting pictures and information, and maybe if I can find some videos from people that have that went to this school previously, I will insert those clips in this video as we continue on. But one story I really did that I found very, very weird. I don't even know how to explain it. It's very weird, and I'm gonna read to you guys what White House boys are. Or this is gonna trigger you in any way, or if you just want to skip this part, you can just skip through it, but I'm gonna read it anyway, so. In 1929, an 11-room concrete block detention building containing 2 cells, one white and one black students, was constructed to house so-called incorrigible or violent students. It was eventually nicknamed by the students as the White House, and they dreaded it in the 1950s and 60s as a site of extreme beatings of students. After corporal punishment, the school was abolished in 1968. The building was used for storage. And in 2008, in response to allegations of extreme beatings and tortures that took place there, state officials sealed the building in a public ceremony, leaving a memorial plaque. It has remained empty since that time. At the time of the U.S. Department of Justice investigation from 2010 to 11, shortly before the Falco facility was closed, Dozier was fenced, a 159-acre high-risk residential facility for 104 boys aged 13 to 21 who have been committed there by a court. Their average length of stay at Dozier was 9 to 12 months, and they lived in several cottages, with each boy having an unlocked room. On an adjacent site was a Jackson Juvenile Offender Center, a maximum risk facility for chronic offenders guilty of felonies or violent crimes. It housed residents in single locked cells like a prison. In the late 20th century, former students who had been held at the school in the 1950s and 1960s began to share accounts of abuses they had suffered or observed against students. They organized a group who became known as the White House Boys, and by the early 21st century, there were about 400 members, survivors of this school from the 1950s and 60s, and since the early 2000s, members of the group began to speak publicly about their experience to media, and to challenge the state to investigate practices and personnel at the school. More than 300 men have publicly recounted abuse and torture at the school, and the survivors had some internal struggles and set up more than one website. So in 2009, the Florida School for Boys was subject of an extensive special report for their own good published by the St. Petersburg Times. Allegations focusing on the 1960s included claims that one room was used for whipping white boys and another for black boys. The faculty was fully segregated until 1968. The whippings were carried out by guards using a 3-foot-long belt made of leather and metal, and were so severe that the victim's underwear will become embedded in their skin. One former student said the punishments were severe but justified. Another said that he had seen a boy trapped in a running laundry dryer at the school and suspected the boy was killed. One former student claimed he was punished in the White House 11 times, receiving a total or more of 250 lashes. Others alleged that they were whipped until they lost consciousness and that punishments were made harsher for boys who cried. Some alumni also claimed that there was a rape room at the school where they were sexually abused by guards. The complaint said that some of the victims were as young as 9 years old. And in February 2010, the White House Boys filed a class action suit for damages against the state government, but it was dismissed by a judge in Leon County, Florida because of the statute of limitations had run out for such a suit. A bill introduced in the 2012 session of the Florida legislature to provide compensation to victims of abuse at the school failed to pass. And in 2017, the state officially apologized to 24 survivors and families. In 2018, the legislature was considering bills to provide compensation, funds for a memorial, and create a task force to determine where to bury unclaimed remains found during a 3-year investigation.
They are known as the White House Boys. Mr. Robert Straley is a spokesperson for the White House Boys and has worked tirelessly to organize survivors of Dozier. And next we have Mr. Andrew Puel, who is also known for his efforts to support survivors and be a voice for those who were not so fortunate. Both men have written books about their experiences and are seeking justice for those who were victims of the abuse at Dozier as well. Thank you, two men, for joining us.
Thank
Robert, you. Andrew, for being so courageous to be spokespersons for what happened to you and what you believe happened at Dozier School. We certainly appreciate you for joining us here for the Aware Show to talk to our viewers about what your experiences were, where we are right now with the investigation as far as you know, and any other information you want to share with us on behalf of those who are not able to be here for one reason or the other. I'm going to start with you, Robert. How did you come to be an inmate at Dozier School for Boys?
I kept running away from home. My mother was bipolar and very abusive. I was bipolar. And when I hit puberty, somebody had to go. It wasn't going to be her. And I started running away. And then when I got in the 3 times, on the 3rd time when they caught me, they put me in a constricted area. And the next thing I knew, I was being put in a van and on my way to Marianna. I looked around and I was struck by the beauty of the place to begin with. I thought it looked like a school or a college campus because there was rows of brick buildings, 4 cottages. They were red brick, and they had plants all the way around them, trimmed. Everything was neatly trimmed. It looked like it had just been mowed. Tall pine trees, elms and oak. It was beautiful, and I thought, gosh, I could stay here.
And once again, how old were you? What year was this?
This was 1963, towards the end of summer. I was 13. I was rather small for my age, weighed 105 pounds. Just missed getting into the little boys' cottage. They put me into Tyler Cottage, which was, I guess, would have been 13 to 15.
So you were with older inmates as well?
I was the smallest boy there, and I could tell at the minute I got in there. They gave us state-issued clothes, which was a white t-shirt, blue pants, and brogans, which was a kind of a boot. And I went into the cottage, and right away the boys started pushing me around, and letting you know where your place was in the pecking order, So I went outside, and there was 4 boys sitting on a bench in state clothes. Now, you could have your own clothes if your parents would send them up. So I went over there and sat next to them. They were talking about running away because all they could see was a woods, and they thought they could just run all night and evade these people and not get caught. And they asked me if I wanted to go, and I said, no, I've been on the run for 3 weeks, and it's not as much fun as you would think. I'm going to stay here a while, However, there was a snitch behind us and turned us in at 8 o'clock that night. Troy Tidwell, it was a one-armed man, and R.W. Hatton, who was a slim man but one of the worst beaters there. And I believe they took one of the big cottage boys with us in case somebody couldn't hold the bed or something like that. And we were taken into a black sedan and driven over just a block away to the White House. And it was a long, narrow building. You went in a side door. They lined you up against the wall, and then they took you through a doorway. There was a fan up there, large industrial fan, and they would turn it on. It made a huge racket. I was at the end of the line, which was not good. You wanted to be at the first of the line to get in and get it over with. Otherwise, you were going to hear everything. So those boys were beaten. And they took the first boy in, and you could hear grunts and then groans, and then that turned into screams, and just, oh, God help me, Mama, and just noises I'd never heard before. People in real pain, and I guess you would have had to have been a person that was in war or an ambulance attendant or something like that to really hear people screaming like that. And the first boy came out, and his eyes was wide. He'd been crying. His face was chalk white. His hand was buried in his crotch, and he was walking stiff. And he was in shock. Now, I didn't know what shock was at that time, and that's how it went. And by the time they got to me, I was in shock from hearing this, and they just led me in there. It was like being in a dream that you couldn't stop for some reason. They took me in, and there was a army cot, an old army cot, and you placed your hands on the rails, turn your head to the side, don't don't let go over the rail. Don't set up. Don't scream, or we'll give you more. You know.
Let me stop you right there before you go any further. Your story is riveting. I just want to take a moment to caution our viewers. These are the stories and the opinions of Mr. Robert Straley and Mr. Andrew Puell, and we are talking about the Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys. But I do want to say a couple of things. These are allegations that have been made, and the latter thing that I want to make sure we put out here is that viewer discretion is advised, as our stories could be graphic to some degree and in nature. So we just want to make sure that we put that out there. And I didn't want to interrupt you, but as you're going into the story and I'm listening to the details of it, we're compelled to make sure that we let our viewers know those things right off the top.
Can you go back off pretty shortly?
Well, we're going to get you. You've got time. I want you to tell your story. This is your story. It's not mine.
Right.
But we need our viewers to understand that these are still under investigation. They're allegations to some degree. But please do finish. Whatever your... Yes,
Robert,
sure.
That happened to you the very first day you were there?
My first day, yes.
My, that must have been horrible.
Well, it was an eye-opener, that's for sure. And so I got down on the bed, and this one-armed man, Mr. Tidwell, started beating me. I couldn't see what he was beating me with. The first 7 or 8 licks was so hard, it knocked me down this far into the bed. And I thought, what am I being hit with? A 2x4? I couldn't imagine. And I was stupid enough to let go of the rail and turn around and take a quick look. And it looked like a barber strap. At first was my first impression. And so immediately when I did that, they jumped on me. And I got maybe 10 more licks. I think I got 35 or 40 lashes,
Your first day?
First night there, hello. And then they took us back to the cottage, and we went and got in the shower, ripped our underwear off, just boxer shorts, and I went in there, took a shower, new boxer shorts, to bed. That was my first day. And I thought, oh my God, I've stepped into a beautiful hell.
Wow. When did you first get to Dozier, and why were you there?
I vandalized my school, and it was here in Pensacola, because it's funny, my niece the other day, she was showing me Facebook, old Warrington people, and they brought up the crime that I did almost 49 years ago. And
What year was this?
66.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, do you ever outlive your...
40 years ago.
Yeah, 49 years ago.
49 years ago.
And people are still talking about the
vandalism at the school.
Yeah, I turned the fire hoses on into school, and it flooded the school, and people
basically being mischievous.
it was the stupid thing to do.
How old were you?
16.
16.
Older than Robert, and it embarrassed my family, and of course, having your kids sent away to a reform school. Matter of fact, the newspaper said their smirks wiped off their faces. Marianna is no bed of roses. So, I mean, the community knew. I think Marianna was set up to be kind of a scared straight kind of thing. You ever see these TV prep?
So if you knew you were going off to Marianna, whoa, you, is basically what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Tell us a little bit more about what happened to you on your first day there.
Well, my first day, we got there late in the afternoon, and the funny thing about the first day was they put insecticide on you to kill lice or something, and we went to Chipola Junior College to see a play that the college was putting on. I thought, well, this is interesting, going to a play at the college. But the next day was my learning curve at the school, because that you're sent down to get your school. What grade you're going to be? They figure what grade you're going to be in, and then you work one day and you go to school one day, and then you go get your physical, and you get your vaccination shots. So we were told to take all our clothes off. And there was this little
Black guy.
black kid, maybe 12 or 13 years old, and he became sexually excited, and the doctor walked by and grabbed his private parts and kind of giggled as he did it. The doctor, like it was a joke or something. And about 10 minutes later, the doctor came to give the boy his vaccination shots, and the boy started freaking out. And he said, the boy's saying, no, no, no. And he's crouching down. And he's backing up, trying to get away from the needle and the doctor. And the doctor grabbed him up and just started slapping him. And he said, shut up, shut up, shut up. So I'm sitting there just terrified. Never been away from home before. Came from a good family. And realize I have just made some serious mistakes.
And you can't go back. How long were you there?
I was only there 4.5 months. At that moment, I became just extremely focused. I said, how do I get out of here? What do I got to do to get out of this place? And I just became focused on that one thing. And to this day, I can focus on one thing like so intently, like this White House Boys thing. I've been on this since 2009. But I sometimes, if you give me a whole bunch of things to do, I kind of get confused. So I feel like that attribute of mine, or that's not an attribute, but that condition I have, I think it dates back to October 12th, 1966.
When you focused on that one thing, getting out of there.
Get out. How am I going to get out of here?
This school really sounds like hell. Not only were there over 100 boys that had been allegedly killed, we don't even know if that's actually the permanent number. That could be, who knows how many boys were killed at that school, since it has been open for over a century. I mean, who knows how many victims lost their lives for no reason. They were there to get alleged help and to get reform, but some of them ended up dying. For what reasons, I don't know. But this White House Boys thing is just mind-blowing. Like, you're there, the staff is there to help boys and to encourage them. It's supposed to be, this great thing. But my thing is, if these rumors have been circulating since this school has began, since the dawn of it in 1900, why would parents continue to send their boys here? Did they not believe that some of these rumors were true? Or was it because the older people that had went before just never wanted to speak on it up until now, up until late before the school officially closed in 2011? This White House Boys thing is sad, because imagine sending your kid to a school to get help because you just can't handle him or whatever the reason is, and he's getting beaten and just totally have a miserable time, torture, abuse, just all these things, and they're supposed to be there to get help, and they're like, it's just sad. And this is actually a real thing, to find out that this big school was in my state. And I've never seen this school, by the way. I don't think I've ever been to Marianna, Florida. If I ever do go, I would definitely love to make a video of it. So comment down below if I should go to Marianna and go to the school and actually, like, if it's able to be walked around. I don't know if they destroyed it or if it's still up, but I definitely love this, just see this place and just see how big it is, and just maybe feel some of the presence of the people that are no longer here because of senseless killings. Now, it's very weird. Why would this school, a reform school for boys, have a cemetery? If a student were to die in your care, the logical thing would be to send the body back to where they came from, to their family. Why would you have a cemetery at the school? That is very frightening. As a student, I'd be like, why did they have a cemetery at a school I'm going to? Like, that makes zero sense. Like, how many people are dying for you to have a full cemetery? In 1968, Florida Governor Claude Kirk said after a visit to the school where he found overcrowding and poor conditions that somebody should have blown the whistle a long time ago. At this time, the school housed 564 boys. Some for offenses as minor as school, truancy, running away from home, or incorrigibility, including cigarette smoking. They ranged in age from 10 to 16 years old, and the White House was closed in 1967. Officially, corporal punishment at the school was banned in August 1968. In 1969, as part of a government reorganization, the school came under the management of the Division of Youth Services of the newly created Department of Health and Rehabilitation Services. In 1996, HRS was reorganized as the Department of Children and Families. According to a 2009 report following investigation by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, there were 81 school-related deaths of students from 1911 to 1973. 31 of these boys were said to be buried on the school grounds, with other bodies shipped home to families or buried in unknown locations. There are 31 simple crosses as grave marks at the cemetery installed in the 1960s and 1990s, but they have been found not to correspond to specific burials. In 2012, interim report by the University of Florida team found a total documented of 98 deaths at the school from 1914 to 1973, including 2 staff members. He says, how can 100 boys die within 60 years die? And what reasons? And why were some of them shipped to their families and some of them just left in unmarked graves? Or some of them buried in graves, or some of them left in unknown locations? Like, why are they finding bodies in the woods? This school didn't get a fence around until 100 years later, so basically when the school almost closed is when it finally got a fence. Before then, it was 1,400 acres. They didn't need a fence, technically, because if you want to run away, you got a long way to go, my guy. You might as well just stay, because who knows what's gonna happen if you just try to run away. But I'm just gonna stop it right here, guys. If you guys wanna hear more about the School for Boys or the Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys or From School, you guys go ahead and let me know down in the comments if you want to hear more stories or want me to try to find, some stories from men or boys that were actually went to this school. You guys let me know, because I can definitely do that. We can definitely just dive deeper into this, because a lot of it just doesn't make any sense. It's supposed to be a reform school, but you have to be sent there by the court. And then you only stay there for 9 to 12 months. So they get an education. I'm just trying to figure out what was this school really about. And since I'm not a boy, since I don't know anybody that went there, I would love to know. So comment what you guys would like to see or what else you would like to know about this down in the comments below, and I can surely get a video out for you guys. If you guys made it through this whole video, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it very much. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button to subscribe to the channel if you want to. Give this video a thumbs up. Get this video to, look at this video to 200 likes, and I will do a part 2 of this, and we'll dive more. Maybe I'll find some more stories on what happened at this school. We'll just dive into this big, because I'm trying to find out just like you want to know. So let me know. My social medias are always in the description box. As always, thank you guys for sticking with me. I love you guys, and I'll see you in another video. Gang.